It was Avery Tate's wedding day in Avonsville, but the groom was nowhere to be seen. Elliot Foster had been in a coma for the past 6 months, ever since a horrifying car accident. The doctors figured he wouldn't last the year. Elliot's mom was devastated and decided to arrange a marriage for him before it was too late. The Fosters were loaded, one of the richest families in Avonsville, but nobody in their right mind wanted to marry a guy who was basically knocking on death's door. Avery sat at the vanity, her slender frame draped in a gorgeous white wedding dress. Her makeup was elegant, highlighting her flawless skin and making her look as pretty as a flower. But one could see the worry in her eyes. With only 20 minutes left before the ceremony, Avery nervously checked her phone, waiting for a text. Because before this whole arranged marriage thing, she had a boyfriend, Cole Foster, Elliot's own nephew. They had kept their relationship a secret. Avery had texted Cole the night before, hoping they could run away together. She stayed up all night waiting, but he never answered. She couldn't wait any longer. Avery stood up, clutching her phone, and made up an excuse to leave the room. She hurried down the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest. As she passed one of the rooms, Avery stopped dead in her tracks. The door was slightly open, and she heard her sister Cassandra giggling. "I bet that idiot sister of mine is still waiting for you, Cole. Maybe you should sweet-talk her a little more. What if she backs out of the wedding? Does she even have a choice at this point?" Cole chuckled, holding Cassandra close and kissing her neck. "Even if she tries to run, the guards will drag her down the aisle." Cassandra let out a wicked laugh. "Avery will lose it when she finds out you've been spending every night with me." Avery felt dizzy. She stumbled backward, her world crumbling around her. She gripped her gown, fighting back tears. Her dad had been bedridden since his company went bankrupt. Then her stepmom, Wanda Tate, made everything worse by forcing her into this marriage with the Fosters, all for the money. Wanda tried to make it sound like she was doing it for the family. But Avery wasn't born yesterday. She knew it was just a way to get rid of her. And if that wasn't bad enough, her own boyfriend, the one who swore he loved her, had stabbed her in the back. It all made horrible sense now why Cole had pushed her to go through with the wedding. He'd promised to marry her once Elliot was gone, but it was all a cruel lie. Her dreams were shattered. The voices in the room got louder, and Avery's grip tightened on her dress. Her eyes turned steely. For years, she'd put up with her stepmom and stepsister's bullying for her dad. She suffered through all kinds of injustices for the sake of the family and to keep the peace. She'd been so naive, so trusting, but not anymore. They wouldn't play her for a fool again. She was taking back everything that was rightfully hers. Soon, the wedding march began. Avery, a vision in white with a bouquet in her hand, walked down the aisle as the music filled the room. She recited her own vows and even put on her own ring, ignoring the confused looks from the guests. From that moment on, she was Mrs. Foster, and no one could touch her. But her new husband, the man who used to practically own Avonsville, was living on borrowed time. That night, Avery was driven to Elliot's mansion. The place was enormous, located in the richest part of the city, and worth a whopping $150 million. Before she could even get a good look at the mansion, Mrs. Cooper showed her to the master bedroom. When she entered, all she could see was the man lying on the massive bed. She walked over slowly, her eyes glued to his face. Elliot's sharp features and chiseled face exuded an air of power. He was pale from being inside for so long, but still strikingly handsome. If it weren't for his condition, she never would have agreed to this marriage. Before the accident, Elliot was a force to be reckoned with in Avonsville. He ran Sterling Group, one of the biggest companies in the country. People said he was ruthless and had ties to some shady characters. Avery never pictured herself with someone like that. Suddenly, the door swung open. It was Cole. "I'm so sorry, Avery. My day was crazy. I barely made it," he said, trying to look sincere. "I'm married to your uncle now," Avery said, her voice ice cold. "Show some respect. Come on, I know you're mad. Look, I didn't run away with you because I didn't want you to struggle. Elliot's practically gone. Just hang tight, and after he's, well, gone, I'll get a good lawyer and ensure you get his entire fortune." Cole grabbed her hands, his eyes gleaming. "Think about it, babe. Everything he has will be ours." but all Avery could see was him with Cassandra. Disgust welled up inside her. "Get away from me." She wrenched her hands free. Cole was stunned. This wasn't the sweet, timid Avery he knew. The Avery he knew would never raise her voice at him like that. What was going on? Feeling a flicker of guilt, he moved closer, hoping to smooth things over. Suddenly, Cole froze, his eyes glued to something behind Avery. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Elliot, he stammered. Avery whirled around. Elliot, who had been lying motionless just moments ago, was slowly opening his eyes. Elliot's eyes were intense under the crystal chandelier, kind of freaking Cole out. Cole's face went pale and he backed away, nearly tripping. "Avery, Mrs. Foster, it's getting late. I'll let you and Elliot get some rest." Cole was sweating bullets as he practically ran out of the room. Avery's heart pounded. Was Elliot really awake? Was he going to be okay? She wanted to talk, but no sound came out. Fear washed over her, rooting her to the spot. Finally, she turned and ran to the stairs. "Mrs. Cooper, Elliot's awake. He opened his eyes," she yelled. Mrs. Cooper hurried up the stairs. "Mr. Elliot does that sometimes, ma'am, but it doesn't mean he's really awake. Look, he's not responding to us," she said. "The doctors said people in his condition hardly ever wake up." "Can I leave the lights on tonight?" "I'm kind of scared," Avery asked. "Of course," Mrs. Cooper said. "Get some sleep now. We're going to his parents' house tomorrow. I'll wake you up in the morning." "Okay," Avery said. After Mrs. Cooper left, Avery put on her pajamas and climbed into bed. She sat stiffly next to Elliot, studying his face. She then reached out, waving her hand in front of his eyes. "What's on your mind, Elliot?" she asked. There was no answer. Sadness washed over her. Compared to what he was going through, her problems seemed small. "I hope you wake up soon," she whispered. "If that scumbag Cole gets his sleazy hands on all your money, you won't be able to rest in peace." Then Elliot slowly closed his eyes. Avery stared at him, her heart pounding. Could he hear her? She lay down, still uneasy. It was official. She was now Mrs. Foster. At least for now, no one could push her around. But what would happen to her once Elliot was gone? She knew she had to use this time to get back everything that was taken from her. Everyone who'd wronged her would pay. The next morning, Mrs. Cooper took Avery to the old mansion to see Elliot's mother, Rosalie Foster. The entire family was in the living room. One by one, Avery greeted them and offered to help make breakfast. Rosalie seemed pleased. An obedient daughter-in-law would be much easier to control. "Did you sleep well, Avery?" Rosalie asked. "Yes, I slept fine," Avery replied, blushing. "How was Elliot?" "He wasn't any trouble, was he?" Rosalie inquired. Avery thought about Elliot's handsome but unresponsive face. Not at all. He didn't move an inch. She didn't mention how warm he'd felt or how she'd snuggled up to him like a pillow during the night. She was startled when she woke up in the middle of the night and realized what she was doing. "I have something for you, Avery." Rosalie opened a purple gift box. "This bracelet will look lovely on you. Do you like it?" Avery didn't want to be rude, so she took the gift. "It's beautiful." "Thank you." Rosalie smiled. "I know things are tough right now, honey. With Elliot the way he is, he can't really be a husband to you. But there's a way to make the best of this situation." She leaned in close. Elliot doesn't have much time. He worked himself to the bone his whole life, never even went on a date, never had kids. Avery froze. Kids? Was Rosalie suggesting what Avery thought she was suggesting? "I want you to give Elliot a child, Avery. An heir," Rosalie stated. Avery's jaw dropped. Everyone else gasped. "Mom, Elliot's been sick for months." "He could be, you know," Henry Foster stammered. "The guy wasn't even dead, and everyone was already trying to get their hands on his estate." Rosalie chuckled. "Oh, honey, I know some doctors. Money talks, you know. And Elliot has plenty. He needs an heir. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter." Every pair of eyes in the room turned to Avery. Avery felt super awkward. Henry's wife asked, "You're still in college, right, Avery? Won't getting pregnant mess that up?" Henry chimed in, "Yeah, she's still young. There's no way she wants to just stay home with a baby." Rosalie knew what they were thinking. It was the same thing that made her want Elliot to have an heir so badly. she asked Avery point blank. Will you have Elliot's baby? You know, you and the baby would inherit all of Elliot's money. It's more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. Avery instantly replied, I'll do it. She was desperate. She had to make sure Cole did not get a dime of Elliot's money, and she knew the Fosters were powerful enough to make her go through with it. Rosalie was thrilled. She said, That's wonderful. I knew you were different. Those other girls thought they wouldn't get anything if Elliot died. Ha! After tea, Avery was about to leave the mansion to go home, but Cole stopped her. The sun was shining and cicadas buzzed, but Avery felt sick to her stomach when she saw his face. She asked Mrs. Cooper, Could you take the gifts home, please? Mrs. Cooper nodded and took the presents to the car. Cole waited until they were alone, and then he said, You're killing me, Avery. You wouldn't even let me touch you when we were dating, but now you're going to have Elliot's baby. Avery smirked. She wanted to hurt him when she said, His baby means I get his inheritance. Why wouldn't I do it? It worked. Cole totally panicked. He said, Hey, here's an idea. We could have a baby and say it's Elliot's. It'll still be a foster, right? Even Grandma wouldn't make you get rid of a baby that is foster. The cocky grin on Cole's face vanished when Avery said, Think things through, Cole. Ambition is great and all, but ambition without brains can be a dangerous thing. I heard that the people by Elliot's side are ruthless. As long as he's breathing, they'll be waiting for him to wake up. You really think they'd let you get away if they find out I'm pregnant with your child? Avery's words were like a bucket of ice water. He knew better than anyone how brutal his uncle's crew could be. They were laying low after Elliot's accident, but that didn't mean they were gone. Cole stammered, Geez, I was kidding. His kid, my kid, it doesn't matter. It's still a foster. Once Uncle Elliot kicks the bucket, I'll treat the kid like my own. Avery sighed. Elliot's kid would be your cousin. Cole looked like he'd just swallowed a bug. He said, Let's not fight about this now, Avery. We'll figure it out after Elliot's gone. Avery shot back. What if he doesn't die? You gonna wait for me forever? Cole was speechless. Avery gave a mean little laugh and said, Gotta go. Your grandma sent a doctor for me back at Elliot's. After visiting Elliot's mother, 2 people whisked Avery off to the hospital for tests. If she was ovulating, they were going to harvest her eggs. If not, they'd give her meds to get things going. One of the female doctors said reassuringly, Don't worry, Mrs. Foster. It might hurt a bit, but once you have Mr. Foster's baby, your place in the family is set. Avery lay on the table with her heart racing. She asked, How long is this going to take? It's tough to say. We might get lucky and it'll be 3 or 4 months. But it could also be a lot longer, maybe even forever, the doctor said. She paused and then added, But you're young, so I'm sure everything will be just fine. Time flew by, and before Avery knew it, fall had arrived in Avonsville, marked by a short but heavy rain shower. One day she got out of the shower and sat down by the bed. She took out a new face cream she had bought that day and began to massage it into her skin. Hey, Elliot, want some of this? She asked as she walked over to his side of the bed. It's been really dry lately. She sat on the edge of the bed and gently rubbed the cream onto his face. Suddenly, Elliot's eyes flew open. They were a striking amber color, like polished gemstones. Avery gasped. The intensity in his gaze was startling. It wasn't unusual for Elliot to open his eyes. It happened almost daily, but it still startled her every time. Am I rubbing too hard? I'm not using much pressure, I promise, Avery said, continuing to gently massage his face. She started mumbling to herself. I read online that you've never had a girlfriend because of your build, I guess? But it's not that bad. You have nice arms, and your legs are really muscular. When she was done applying the cream, she lightly tapped his arms and legs. Her touch was feather-light, not enough to get a reaction from anyone. But Elliot's reaction shocked her. Because she thought she heard a man's voice. Was that you, Elliot? She exclaimed, jumping off the bed. Did you just say something? Her eyes were glued to him. Elliot stared back. There was something different in his gaze now. Before, when he opened his eyes, they were vacant, lifeless. But now they were filled with emotion. Anger, hatred, suspicion. Mrs. Cooper! Avery yelled. racing down the stairs as if they were on fire. "Mrs. Cooper! Elliot's awake! He just talked! He's really awake!" Her face was flushed, her heart was pounding, and she could hardly catch her breath. Elliot was awake, she was sure of it. Not only were his eyes open, but he had actually spoken to her. Even though his voice was raspy and slow, the threatening tone sent shivers down her spine. Elliot had asked her who she was. Avery's mind went blank. Everyone had been saying he was going to die, so she had never even considered what she'd do if he woke up. Mrs. Cooper, the doctor, and the bodyguard came rushing in when they heard Avery shouting. Within minutes, the room was crowded. Everyone was in shock. No one thought Elliot would ever wake up. "I knew you would wake up, Elliot," Rosalie cried, tears of joy streaming down her face. "It's so good to have you back," said Henry. "You have no idea how worried we were. Mom, especially. She was so stressed, her hair turned gray." The doctor finished examining Elliot. "This is incredible," he said, turning to Rosalie. There was no indication he was improving. "Now that Mr. Foster can talk, we just have to follow up with rehabilitation treatment, and he'll be back to normal in no time." The good news was too much for Rosalie. Her legs buckled and she fainted. Henry caught her and carried her out of the room. The doctor, Mrs. Cooper, and the bodyguard remained in the room, but Avery stood frozen by the door, too afraid to enter. There was an intimidating aura around Elliot now that he was awake. He was propped up in bed, leaning against the headboard. His eyes, sharp as lasers, fixed on Avery with an icy glare. "Who is she?" he growled, his voice low and full of disgust. The doctor was so scared he almost stopped breathing. Mrs. Cooper looked down. "Mr. Foster, she's the wife your mother found for you while you were ill. Her name is—" Elliot's lips barely moved, his voice flat and cold. "Get her out of here." Avery was so startled she took a few steps back. Elliot was like a bear waking up from hibernation. Not that scary when he was asleep, but terrifying now that he was awake. Mrs. Cooper came out of the room and gently closed the door. Seeing Avery's frightened face, she said, "Don't worry, dear. Mr. Elliot just woke up, so he might not be in the mood for any surprises just yet. Why don't you get settled in the guest room tonight and we'll figure things out in the morning? Mrs. Rosalie really likes you, so she'll probably be on your side." Avery's head was spinning. She had thought about Elliot maybe not making it, but never about him actually waking up. "Mrs. Cooper, my things are still in the room," she said, looking nervously at the bedroom door. After that look Elliot had given her, she had a feeling he wasn't going to be happy about her being his wife. She needed to be ready to leave at a moment's notice. Mrs. Cooper sighed. "Let's leave your things for now, unless there's something super important. I'll get them for you tomorrow." "Okay," Avery agreed, then asked, "Are you scared of him?" "I've worked for him for a long time," Mrs. Cooper replied. "He might seem intimidating, but he's always been good to me." Avery just grunted in response, not trusting herself to speak. She might be his wife, but this was basically their first meeting. It made sense that he wasn't exactly thrilled to see her. Avery tossed and turned all night. Elliot waking up had totally messed up her plans. The next morning at 8, Mrs. Cooper brought Avery's things to the guest room. "Breakfast is ready, dear," she said. "Mr. Elliot is already in the dining room. You should go down and talk to him. Get to know each other a little." "He probably doesn't want to get to know me," Avery said, rolling her eyes. "He seemed pretty mad yesterday." "Well, you still need to eat," Mrs. Cooper insisted. "Come on. He wasn't even mad when I told him Mrs. Rosalie likes you. He might be feeling a bit better today." When Avery got to the dining room, she saw Elliot in his wheelchair. He was able to move his arms, thanks to all the exercises he'd done before the accident, as well as a bit of physio in the morning. Even in that wheelchair, he sat up straight. She could tell he'd be tall and strong if he could stand. Avery felt butterflies in her stomach as she sat down, and Mrs. Cooper brought her breakfast. Elliot didn't say a word, not even when Avery started eating. She snuck a quick look at him, and their eyes met. His were intense, like he was looking right through her. "Hey, I'm Avery Tate," she stammered, feeling anxious and awkward. Elliot took a sip of coffee. "I heard you might be pregnant with my child," he said, his voice totally emotionless. Avery's stomach dropped, and suddenly she wasn't hungry anymore. "So, do you want to get an abortion?" he asked, calmly saying cruel words like they were discussing the weather. "There are a couple of ways to do it." Avery's face turned white. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Mrs. Cooper could tell things were going south fast. "Mr. Elliot, please understand, having a baby was Madame Rosalie's idea. It wasn't Avery's fault," she pleaded. "Don't you dare bring my mom into this," Elliot snapped, silencing Mrs. Cooper immediately. Avery tried to speak up. "Elliot, don't you dare call me Elliot," he interrupted, his voice like ice. Avery was totally caught off guard. "Well, what am I supposed to call you then?" "Honey?" she shot back. Elliot's face turned red with anger. Before he could explode, Avery blurted out, "Look, I'm not even pregnant. I got my period. You can ask Mrs. Cooper. I asked her for a tampon this morning." Elliot didn't say a word, just took a slow sip of his coffee. Avery's stomach was in knots, but she forced herself to eat her breakfast as quickly as possible, then got up to get her bag from the room so she could get out of the house. Being under the same roof as Elliot made her uncomfortable. Before she could step out, she heard Elliot's cold and empty voice. "Get your papers ready. We're getting a divorce." Avery stopped walking, but she wasn't surprised. "Right now?" she asked. "Give it a couple of days," Elliot replied. Rosalie had been so shocked the night before, seeing Elliot wake up, that her blood pressure went through the roof, and they had to take her to the hospital. Elliot wanted to wait until his mom was feeling better before dealing with the divorce. "Okay, just give me a heads up," Avery said before hurrying back to her room. She came back out with her bag a few minutes later and saw a familiar figure she hadn't expected to see in the living room. In the living room, standing next to Elliot's wheelchair, was Cole, looking like a scared dog with its tail tucked between its legs. "Hey, Elliot," Cole said, putting a box of vitamins on the table. "My parents are at the hospital visiting Grandma, so Dad told me to come see you." Elliot just looked at his bodyguard, and he knew exactly what that look meant. He picked up the box and chucked it right in the trash. "Hey," Cole cried, "those were the best vitamins. I can get you something else if you don't like those. Come on, don't be mad." Right after Cole finished, one of the bodyguards kicked him in the back of the knees. Cole went down hard. Avery gasped. She couldn't believe Elliot would be so violent with his own nephew. Elliot grabbed a cigarette and said, "Well, look who showed up. My dear nephew. You must be disappointed that I'm awake now." The bodyguard lit it for him. Avery's jaw dropped. "Coffee and cigarettes already? Did this guy think he was invincible or something?" Cole was in pain, but he held back tears. "What? Of course not. I'm glad you're finally awake. I was hoping." "You're trying to talk back to me?" Elliot cut him off, raising an eyebrow. He sounded calm, but every single word was filled with murderous intent. "Shouldn't you be confessing about how you bribed my lawyer?" Elliot flicked ash in Cole's face. "Get out. You screw up one more time and I'll throw you to the dogs." Cole scrambled to his feet and ran. He was terrified. Avery's heart was racing. She was scared. No, she was terrified of Elliot. Even a man as despicable as Cole looked like a buffoon next to him. She was not going to get on Elliot's bad side or attract his attention. Clutching her bag, she hurried out the door. She was going to the hospital for a checkup that day. Her period had been weird, late and lighter than usual. That had never happened before. When Avery got to the hospital, she was escorted to a gynecologist she hadn't consulted with before. The gynac ordered an ultrasound. An hour later, she got the results. The scan didn't show any bleeding, but there was something else. A gestational sac. She was pregnant. The news that she was pregnant hit Avery like a ton of bricks. "Doctor, what if I don't want to keep it?" she blurted out, panicked. She was about to divorce Elliot. Having his baby was the last thing she needed. The doctor looked at her intently. "Why not? Do you know how many people would love to have a child?" Avery felt a pang of guilt, but avoided his gaze. "Why didn't your husband come with you?" the doctor asked gently. "Even if you don't want the baby, shouldn't you talk to him first?" Avery frowned, and the doctor quickly scanned her file. "You're only 21? You're not married then? Well, I might as well not be," Avery exclaimed. She was as good as divorced in her book. "An abortion isn't a simple procedure," the doctor explained patiently. "Even if you were certain, I can't schedule one for you today. Go home and think it over." Whatever is going on with you and your boyfriend, the baby isn't to blame. He handed Avery her file. You're already spotting. If we don't address this, it's hard to say if we can save the pregnancy anyway. Avery's heart sank. What do we have to do? She asked, her voice small. I thought you wanted an abortion, the doctor replied, a little surprised. Have you changed your mind? You're a beautiful young woman. Your baby is bound to be gorgeous. If you want to keep it, I'll prescribe some medication. You'll need to stay in bed for a week, then come back for a checkup. As Avery left the hospital, the sun beat down on her, making her head spin. Her back was soaked with sweat, her legs heavy. She felt utterly lost. She had no idea where to turn or who to talk to. The only thing she knew was that Elliot couldn't find out. If he did, he'd have his goons dragging her straight into that operating room. Avery still hadn't decided about the baby. Her mind was racing, and she needed space to think. She hailed a cab and headed to her Uncle Ron's. After her parents' divorce, her mom, Laura, had been staying with her brother. Ron's family wasn't wealthy like the Fosters, but they were comfortably well off. Avery, you came alone? Ron's wife, Miranda, remarked, her face turning sour when she saw Avery's empty hands. I heard you brought a ton of fancy gifts last time you visited your dad. Guess manners don't matter when it's not your own house, huh? Miranda had been expecting something from Avery, and her empty hands were a major buzzkill. Avery was caught off guard. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Aunt Miranda. It totally slipped my mind. I'll definitely bring something next time, she stammered. Whatever, looks like you got kicked out of the Foster mansion anyway, Miranda scoffed. I heard Elliot Foster is awake. If he actually cared about you, you wouldn't be here crying to your mommy, right? Avery's cheeks burned as her aunt's words hit their mark. Seeing her daughter being attacked, Laura stepped in. Even if she was asked to leave, you don't have to be so harsh, she said. I'm just being realistic. Do you have to be so sensitive, Laura? Miranda snapped. Don't forget whose roof you're under. If you don't like it, you can leave. Laura was fuming, but she knew arguing was pointless. Avery's heart ached as she watched the whole scene unfold. She knew her mom wasn't exactly living the dream at Uncle Ron's, but she hadn't realized how tense things were between Laura and Miranda. Maybe you should get your own place, Mom? Avery suggested, feeling incredibly awkward. I have some money on me. Laura nodded. Yeah, I'll pack my stuff. Within 30 minutes, Avery and Laura were back in a cab, escaping the war zone. Don't worry about it, Avery, Laura said, forcing a smile. I've saved up some money. I only stayed because your grandma was sick and needed my help. If it weren't for her, I would have been out of there ages ago. Avery looked down, mulling it over. You know, Aunt Miranda wasn't totally wrong, she confessed to her mom. Elliot and I are getting divorced in a couple of days. Laura froze. Oh, honey, she whispered, pulling Avery into a hug. It's okay, you haven't even graduated yet. Now you can really focus on finishing college. Totally, Avery said, leaning on her mom's shoulder. After the divorce, I'm not going back to that mansion. Let's find a place together. Avery decided to keep the pregnancy to herself for now. Her mom had enough to deal with. When she got back to the mansion that night, the whole place was unsettlingly quiet. Avery nearly jumped out of her skin when Mrs. Cooper suddenly appeared. Dinner's ready. I left some for you and I picked up some tampons too, Mrs. Cooper said. Thanks, Mrs. Cooper, but I already ate. It's so quiet. Is Elliot not home? Avery asked, heading towards her room. Mr. Foster isn't back yet. The doctor told him to take it easy at home, but he never listens. Mrs. Cooper sighed. He's always been stubborn. Nobody tells him what to do. Avery nodded, remembering how intense Elliot was, even in their brief encounters. He was rebellious, ruthless, and had a massive ego. Any sympathy she'd felt for him while he was sick had completely vanished. That night, Avery tossed and turned, thoughts of the baby swirling in her mind. Instead of feeling calmer like she'd hoped, she was even more anxious than at the hospital. The next morning seemed to arrive in the blink of an eye. Not wanting to run into Elliot, Avery stayed in her room for a while. Around 9:30, Mrs. Cooper knocked. Mr. Foster just left, ma'am. Breakfast is ready whenever you are. Avery blushed, caught off guard by Mrs. Cooper's knowing look. After breakfast, she got a call from a classmate about a translating job. It's super easy, I promise, her friend said. The pay is good, but they need it by noon today. Avery needed the money, so she agreed. By 11:30 a.m., she was finishing up the manuscript, making sure there were no errors. Suddenly, her laptop went haywire. To her horror, the screen started flickering, then turned blue, then went completely black. "Oh, crap!" she gasped as her laptop crashed. Luckily, she'd saved everything on her flash drive. Now she just needed another computer to send the file. "Mrs. Cooper, my laptop just died," she said, panicking. "Is there another computer I could use? I just need to email something quickly." "There's one in Mr. Foster's study," Mrs. Cooper replied. Avery froze. There was no way she was going anywhere near Elliot's things. "It's just one file. That shouldn't take long, right?" Avery wondered aloud, anxiously. Mrs. Cooper could see how stressed Avery was. "Mr. Foster can be a bit intimidating, but he's not a monster, dear. Since it seems urgent, I doubt he'll blame you for this," she reassured Avery. Avery checked her watch. It was already 11:50 a.m. Elliot's study was upstairs, and since he'd been sick, no one had been in there except the cleaning staff. Avery was terrified of getting caught by Elliot, but at the same time, she desperately needed the easy money. If she decided to have an abortion, it was going to be expensive. Although it wasn't just her baby. It was Elliot's too. In a way, using his computer would be like getting him to chip in for the bill, she reasoned. She took a deep breath and walked into the study. Walking straight to the desk, she pressed the power button on the computer. She was just starting to wonder what she should do if it had a password when the screen suddenly lit up.